Hello, beautiful souls, being humans. Maria here. How are we on this lovely, what the heck is today? Thursday? See, this is what happens when you really start to break the illusion of time and don't work a matrix job. I very rarely know what day it is, but I guess it's Thursday. And I'm popping on just to chat a little bit about karma and really kind of just energy in general. Um, and again, this is just my perspective based on what I've learned in my journey thus far. And I do feel I have a much deeper understanding of just energy in general and how it works on this earth plane, which in turn has allowed me to really understand karma. Because I do believe that karma is yet another concept that there's a lot of misconceptions about. And I can say that from my own experience and what I used to believe karma was versus what I really kind of understand it to be now based on everything being energy. So, first, I'm kind of just going to give my spiel about how everything is energy. Energy is everything. I say that, I think, in a lot of my videos because it is true, or I believe to be true. So, when I say everything's energy, I mean that everything in this physical existence, everything on this earth plane that we use our five senses to experience is energy. So this sparkling water is energy. The water in it, the bottle, I can touch it, I can drink it, I can taste it, I can feel it, I can smell it. Again, all of the things that we use our five senses for that are tangible, that's all energy, right? And there's energy behind all of these physical manifestations. So what we see and touch in the physical is driven by energy behind it. Protons, neutrons, electrons, all that lovely stuff. Not here to really give a full-blown science lesson, but more just help people to understand that literally everything is energy. And it's the energies that we don't see that we don't realize are really playing such a big role in our lives. And when I'm referring to the energies we don't see, I'm more or less talking about like our thoughts, our emotions, right? Those are not energies that we see with the physical eyes, but we feel them, we think them, in turn we emit them out, right, as energetic beings. So when we talk about like auras and stuff, right, our auras are kind of constantly changing, right? Like we have like, I guess, this sort of like base aura, if you will. But because our thoughts and our emotions are constantly changing, our aura or our energy fields that we're putting out is changing, right? Because our thoughts and our emotions are changing as the day progresses. Sometimes you wake up in a great mood and 3 hours later something happens and now you're in a bad mood. So now all of these negative thoughts are like perpetuating in your head, and now all of the emotions that are attached to those thoughts come up, right? So like our energy is shifting throughout the day all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. So in turn, our auras are also generating a different frequency that they're putting out. And in turn, based on the energy or frequency or vibration, whatever word you want to use, it's all really synonymous to me, you're attracting that, right? And, that's to me really what the law of attraction is. And that's what karma is. So, there's no good karma, bad karma, because there's no good energy, bad energy. Everything's just energy. When you really start to view the world and everything in it as energy, you start to reach this point of like neutrality. That's where like judgment starts to go right out the window, because you're not looking at these things from a human bias lens anymore. You're literally looking at every experience, everything you touch, taste, feel, sense, smell, encounter. It's energy. And when I can only speak for me, but the more I view this world as just an energetic exchange, the first of all, the freer I feel, because I feel way less judgmental of good, bad, right, wrong, do this, don't do that, right? Because I understand that we're all just energetic beings that have incarnated into a physical, energetic vessel to experience human life. I mean, that's really the simplest breakdown of why we're all here. We are these amazing, empowered, powerful, spiritual light beings that, again, I've talked about how like our spirit, our soul, it's eternal. It never dies. It never goes anywhere. It's always in existence. But when we pop into these incarnations, into the human form, we forget about that aspect of us. And many of us just believe that we're just the body. And while I do believe the body to be a very miraculous vessel to be experiencing life through, that's not all we are. It's not even close to all we are. And it's just a gift that we've allowed ourselves to receive to be able to experience human life and the human journey. So karma is energy responding to energy and returning energy based on the energy that's being put out. So when you start to think about like the thoughts and emotions that run through your body every single day, right? This is where I start to say like we start waking up to self when you start to actually become aware of the thoughts that you're thinking and you become aware of the emotions. You're actually like starting to feel them and think them on a more conscious level. You're not this autopilot programmed computer system that just keeps spitting out the same thoughts and feelings very unconsciously every day and living in that. Many of us are still there. And that's really what this huge evolution is all about. It's breaking free of that autopilot program that many of us are still trapped in. We're enslaved in that. The matrix mindset, right? It's the rat race, the gerbil wheel, the hamster wheel. I've said it in other videos, but it's really just living, to me, very unconsciously. And when you're living unconsciously, your thoughts and your emotions take control over you because you're not even aware of them. It's like they have become your normal. They've become your routine. So you don't even realize you're thinking them. You don't realize what you're spewing out when you're talking to people. You don't realize the emotions that your body is trapping inside and then eventually causing disease, like what happened to me. So really all karma is whatever you're putting out energetically is what's going to come back to you. And it will come back to you in many different situations, experiences. It will be showed to you through different people, different interactions. And it's really just kind of showing you where you're at energetically, right? That's the law of attraction. You're attracting things into your energetic field because you're on the same wavelength as those things. So when we are stuck in a unconscious state, which to me just means very, very unaware of our own being, our own beingness, our own thoughts, our own emotions, our actions, our behaviors, how we speak to people, how we show up for people. Many of us are very unconscious to that because, again, we're on this autopilot and we're doing what we've been told for so long. What the system tells us to do or whatever our parents tell us to do, right? Like we've just been so programmed by everything in our life that we don't even realize it. Like you don't realize it. And there is this awesome quote by one of my faves, Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I don't remember it verbatim, but essentially what he's saying is by the time we're 35 years old, by the time every person is 35 years old, they are operating off of 95% of their subconscious, and only 5% of our brain is conscious, meaning only 5% is awake and aware of what we're actually doing. Because the subconscious part of our brain is the one that holds on to everything we've ever experienced, everything we've ever heard, everything we've ever watched, everything we've ever felt, like every little thing. The subconscious is this like mega computer that stores it and it holds on to it, but we're not aware of it. So it's actually like it's running the show behind the scenes, and it's what's causing us to make choices in life. It's what's causing us to react certain ways in life because we're not aware of it. And again, it holds on to everything. It holds on to all of our trauma. It holds on to, again, anything you've ever heard or read. The brain doesn't the brain can't decipher like an actual event happening to you versus something you read. Like, is that not wild? So if you read something in a book, your brain is taking that experience in just as real as if you experienced it. It's the same thing if you watch a movie. If you're watching a movie and it is really having a very strong emotional impact on you, even if it's not, no matter what you're watching, your subconscious is sucking it in as an experience that you actually experienced, even though your body didn't go through it, you didn't go through the trauma, but by watching it or listening to it or reading about it, your brain takes it in and believes that you did. And so we've talked about the ego before in other videos, and so now your ego part of the brain comes in and wants to act as your protector. So it has all this knowledge in the subconscious, and so then it's the conscious part of you that is now dictating how you should be in life, because it's really trying to protect you from feeling uncomfortable things or going through uncomfortable, painful experiences that the irony is most humans came to actually experience uncomfortable shit to be able to transcend it and realize that it's part of our growth, right? It's part of the soul's growth. It's also part of humanity's evolution. So the ego is popping in to say, oh, you don't want to feel that, you don't want to go through that, you don't want to be a victim again, you don't want that. So it's creating that's the conscious part of us that's talking to us. And so now we're making a lot of decisions in our life based off of a programmed computer part of our subconscious that is just held on to anything you've ever been exposed to, anything you've ever been exposed to. And now the ego part of your brain is coming in to protect you, right? So none of these things are bad. This is just what happens. I apologize. There's this annoying fly in here, and it's been in here for some time. So I'm dealing with it, but it's annoying me. But anywho, and see how quickly I just lost my train of thought because of a fly. This is what happens when I'm sort of not in my thinking mind when I'm talking, and then I try to come back to where I was. I kind of don't really remember. But anywho, I'm just going to jump back to, I was talking about like our brain and just why we do the things we do. And I know for me, when I started to wake up to myself, I started really questioning why. Why do I feel certain things? Why do I think certain things? Why do I make the decisions I make? That's a very powerful question to start asking yourself when you begin to wake up to self. Because you may not always like the answers, or the ego may not always like the answers. But when you really just allow yourself to sit with everything, the whys, and allow it just to be, and realize that you are here to experience these things, but to also not get stuck in them. Like, we're here to experience these things, but not get trapped in them, right? And that's what happens to us, is that we get trapped in a lot of the trauma, the traumatic stuff that happens, and we can't move through it. We don't learn the lesson, which in turn, karma will present the lesson again. So here we go back to karma again. So lessons to me in life really are just like, I honestly look at every interaction in my daily life as an experience, as a tool, and as a lesson that I'm to grow from. Like, why would I be experiencing these things if I wasn't to gain some sort of either wisdom, knowledge, whatever, right? Like, I'm here to experience. So that's how I really look at everything in my life, is that every interaction, whether it's with a bird outside to people that I, interact with. I volunteer at a dog shelter, so there's a lot of people I interact with there. Like, every little experience and interaction is for my growth. It's for my journey. So with karma, a lot of us get caught up in, wishing people bad karma. And if we could all just really understand that people are already karmically creating their own karma. So people that we label as bad or as evil, that do bad things, right? And there's plenty of us out there that do bad things, evil things. Those of us that are looking at that and judging it and having an opinion about it, not looking at it from a neutral standpoint, but having a judgment, because that's part of being a human. And we're wishing them bad karma. We're actually only wishing ourselves bad karma. And I wish more people could really understand that, because it's like you're wishing bad upon bad. And these people that do bad things, and when I'm talking about bad things, I'm talking about the people that, like abuse of children, animals, elderly. The three populations that we as humans perceive to be kind of inferior, I would say is a word, but just more so vulnerable, right? We look at those as our vulnerable population: children, animals, and elderly, because we believe that they are innocent, that they don't have the means and the capacity to take care of themselves without us, to protect themselves. So we as the humans want to come in and save all of them, right? And I understand that, right? That is part of the compassion that we have. But there's also a big part of it that we are all still kind of running on this like hero complex program. And I can say this because I was a nurse, and there's a big, what I would say, like hero complex with healthcare providers in general, nurses, doctors, anybody that's kind of taking care of life form. There is like a hero complex program that's conditioned into us because it's our job to save them, right? It's our job to cure them, to heal them, all these things. And then we take that on as our mission. From the higher perspective, and I work with spirit a lot, from the higher perspective, none of us are here to save anyone except ourselves. And that's one of the hardest lessons, concepts that many of us that are awakening are dealing with, because even throughout this awakening process, we'll all slip back into we're here to save humanity. And I do believe I believe in saving humanity, but I believe that means we have to save ourselves, because we are humanity. We are human while we're here, right? So who am I to save anybody else if I can't save and free myself first? I can't. I can't control other people's paths. I can't control their choices, their decisions, their behaviors. We live on a planet that is free will. We all have free will. And the more I focus my energy and attention on saving everybody, the more drained I actually feel in this, because I realize I'm actually not here to protect and save them all. I can only do that for myself, and I've proven to myself that the more I do that for myself, I inspire other people to be able to do it for themselves. That's how I feel I save humanity. I save myself, I fix myself, I heal myself, I free myself. And by doing that, it inspires other people that had a similar soul contract when they jumped into this life. It's sparking a remembering that they're like, oh my God, that's right, I'm here to do the same thing. So I'm gonna listen to some of her guidance because it resonates, right? Like that's why I'm putting these things out there. It's for the people that I know this is gonna resonate with. Because I do feel like I had great support systems as I started going through my awakening. And I know I've said it in other things, but there's certain people that I gravitated to and listening to them while they shared, because it made sense to me just based on what I was going through my own journey. So I feel like that's how we save each other. We share our truth. We share what we've awakened to. But we share it in an empowering way, not in a way to control other people. We're not sharing it to make people do it our way, because how does that make us any different than the systems that many of us are trying to break out of, right? The systems have always told us how we're supposed to be. And so through my awakening, yeah, when I started realizing like a lot of this very empowering knowledge, like the fact that we can heal ourselves, and people, we can, that is a belief of mine that ain't going anywhere. Like we can heal ourselves, right? That's a really hard concept, though, for people to swallow, to accept, to believe. And so when I first started realizing like there's truth to it, because I've proven it to myself, and I've also seen countless other people do the work and prove it to themselves, so I know there's truth to it. I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. I wanted everybody to be like realize like, oh my God, you can save yourself, you can heal yourself. You don't need all these external things, right? But then I realized like, yeah, not a lot of people are ready to swallow that. Not a lot of people are ready to even start to open their mind to that. And that's okay. That there's nothing that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's been a very humbling lesson throughout my journey. Every time I can feel myself sort of like slipping back into like trying to get people to see it the way I see it, or trying to get them to believe in themselves. Like, I can't make people believe these things. Just like nobody could make me believe these things until I experienced them for myself and proved it to myself. And then also watched other people prove it to themselves. And it's like, I don't need any more proof, right? Like, I don't. So for me, it's like I'm really here just to share that with people, to inspire those that are starting to realize they have the power within, or those that are even further along than I am in this, and this is just helping to um, validate where they're at. It's just a good little remembering. It's a good tool to again validate how far you've come. And for those that think that this is all batshit crazy, that's totally fine too. But I also know that just by sharing this, I am planting seeds. Because as we talk about the subconscious, if you watch this, whether you agree with it, believe it or not, I've at least planted a seed into your subconscious that could potentially rewire, unwire all of the other seeds that are very limiting beliefs, right? Because what I share with people, or what I try to share with people, is very limitless beliefs. Limitless, meaning like empowering. Like we're not limited. It is the 3D matrix that has made us believe that everything is limited here. Everything, right down to all of the natural resources. Like, hello, I'm sorry, but Gaia, Mother Earth, she's a beautiful creator consciousness in herself. She has an abundance of supplies. She's not ever going to run out of water. Like again, all those things were created to create fear for us, to go into a survival mode and try to hoard everything, like, because we're all trying to protect ourselves and our family. So if we believe that there's a scarcity of things on the earth plane, then we're going to go into survival mode, which stems from fear, which makes us greedy because we have to protect our own, right? But everybody's thinking that same thing. So I know I digress, but it's kind of just how this happens when I talk. But I do really want to go back to karma because it's very, very misused and misunderstood. And when we're wishing bad karma on people, when we're wishing bad things to happen to bad people, we are only going to experience that energy in our own life. And we're also just amplifying the energy that those bad people already live in, okay? So those bad people, like I was talking about, that do bad things to our vulnerable population of children, animals, and kids. Those people are so stuck in trauma and fear, and they are so unconscious to their own suffering, they don't know what they're doing, okay? You can argue with me, you can say they know better. There's a conscious part of them that knows what they're doing. Yes, I would agree with that. But on an energetic, higher level, they are literally just creating in their reality what they're living in already. So guess what? Their thoughts and their emotions are dark. They're dark. They're the shadows. They're our shadows. They're these people's shadows, and these people have allowed the shadow to come in and really disconnect them from their light, their true essence. And now the shadow in them is running the show. So now the shadow is projecting that toxicity, that pain, that trauma out to the world around them. And it's often taken out on innocent. And I say innocent like that because these souls that are babies, that are animals, and that are elderly are recycled souls just like you and I. They have lived many lives just like you and I. They have a lot of karma just like you and I. They have chosen the avatar they chose just like you and I. So what we perceive to be innocent because of the avatar that they're in, and because we've been programmed to believe that children are innocent, animals are innocent, elderly are innocent, and they're vulnerable, and they need our protection. They need us. They're needy. They're inferior on some level as part of the programming that we believe. So then in turn, we put all of our energy and emphasis into saving them all, right? And then when we do that, we distract from self, first of all, and we don't go deep within and look at what needs to be saved inside of us. We get drained, and then we get very cynical of bad people. And I can tell you from my own experience, I lived many years very cynical, and it broke my body, and it broke my mind. And it was not a good place to be living in, because now that I fully understand that that energy was seeping out of me into everybody around me, I started to realize how I was really affecting other people, and how I was suffering inside and didn't even know. And my cynicism of the world around me, and my judgments of people and how they lived their life, were literally eating away at me, and didn't affect those people one iota. Not to their conscious knowledge. Energetically, yes, because really I'm sending toxicity at them by thinking those things. And if they're already in a low state, I am creating an energetic cord with them, because I'm kind of meeting them at their low state, really. I'm stooping to their level. Like we talk about stooping to people's levels. Well, that's stooping to their level, and it's perpetuating it. So, I mean, we can want to go out and kill everybody that does bad things to the innocent beings on this earth plane, but we will be creating this 3D matrix for many, many more linear years, because we're living in our own suffering unconsciously. They're living in their own suffering unconsciously. And on some level, we think we're better than them because we don't do those bad things. Meanwhile, we don't remember many of our other lives where we've done things that the human in us now wouldn't maybe like to acknowledge. But when you, again, can start to look at everything as energy and realize that all of those bad things that are done are literally rooted in fear. They are literally rooted from fear. Every toxic, vile act of crappy violence and just low vibe shit stems and is rooted in fear. And when you can really start to realize that people are drowning in their own fear, and that's why they do the things they do, that's where I've been able to step into this level of empathy for people that I've never had before. And as a nurse, I was very empathic towards my patients, but I'm learning empathy on a whole new spectrum, because I'm realizing that, you know, there's a saying, hurt people, and they literally do, but it's so much deeper than that. Like the suffering and the hurt that we're energetically carrying in our bodies that we are so not aware of is eating us alive. And then we're looking externally at all these other bad things, and it's like sucking us in, because we're still not looking at the stuff inside. We're not looking at our internal shadows. This is really what it comes down to. People don't want to acknowledge their internal shadow. We don't want to see our shadow side. And, you know, the shadow self was a term coined by Carl Jung back in the day. And really, it's like, it's all these aspects of our personality that we don't like, or that we at one point were told are bad, So we've sort of like pushed them aside and shoved them aside and suppressed them, but they're still part of us. Just because we don't consciously allow ourselves to acknowledge them, they're still very much a part of us. In fact, they're the ones running the show. So the shadow runs the show for a while until the light wakes up, because it's the shadow that is really just crying for love. It's crying for attention. It wants to be heard. But we as the human feel very uncomfortable when we face our shadow and when we allow ourselves to actually invite the shadow in and talk to it. I've done that in multiple meditations. And it's very empowering because you start to see these parts of you that you kind of knew were there, but you didn't want to look at them because you didn't like them for whatever reason. You didn't like them, you didn't agree with them, you thought they were bad. And so you start to look at them from a completely different lens and realize it's just it's just an aspect of you. It's not good or bad. It's just a part that has been in hiding because it lives in fear. And when you yourself can start to realize your own fears, you have more empathy for people, because you can start to really discern when people are living in their own fear. And, this goes into like, I see a lot of things about negative people, can't be around negative people. And yes, negative people are very draining. I would 1,000% agree with that. That's where having healthy boundaries for all of us is very important, because negative people don't realize they're negative. And so that's why it feels draining to us when we're around it, because it's like this cyclical spiral that they keep talking about the same negative things, right? Whether it's about their own life that they're looking back at in a victimized way, or they're looking externally and everything is bad. Everything is bad. To me, that's a negative person. Like that's when I've been around people, like that's what negativity feels like. It is so unconscious to the person, they don't even realize it. So it's like spewing out of them. But like I said, when I've taken a real honest look at myself and been able to realize, wow, I was a I don't know, sort of like a closet negative person, we'll say. Because again, I could go out into public, I could go out into my work, I could go out into family settings and put on a big smile and appear very happy and very carefree. And people that aren't very in tune to energy probably thought I was. Like I could fake it pretty well, but inside, and then when I was like home in a safe place where I could talk negatively about people to other people, it would like spew out of me. And I was so unconscious to it until my body was like, you need to wake the F up. Like you're so unconscious to your shadows that you're drowning in, and you're thinking that it's everybody else in the world that has a problem, and it's not you. And I listen to a lot of people. I'm around a lot of different people who I can see are very unconsciously swimming in that same realm. And I feel like that's why I'm popping on to just talk about karma and just energy in general. Because again, our thoughts and our emotions are some of the most potent energies. And because we don't see them, we don't realize that. And so that's why they have this way of kind of taking over, because we're unaware of them, because we're not seeing them. So because we can't use necessarily our five senses to gauge the energy of thoughts and emotions, but when you start tapping into energy, that's all you'll ever tap into. Like you'll constantly be feeling it and being aware of it. I shouldn't say feeling it, being aware of it. You start to take your power back again, because now you realize you do have control over your own energy. You do, in a sense. And when I say control, I mean, to me, that's having control, is becoming aware. It's not being controlling, but I now have more control over how I show up in this world, of me, because I'm aware now of my thoughts and my emotions way more than I ever have been. And so that doesn't mean I don't allow myself to feel them and think them when they come up, because that's not what you do in this. When you do that, you're just going back into the let's shove the shadow stuff down, right? I allow the shadow aspects to come up whenever they need to come up, free of judgment now, as best as I can. I had another ego death a couple days ago, and it was all shadow stuff that needed to come up. It was ready to come up. I kind of didn't have like a forewarning, so I think it threw me for a loop. But then, really reflecting, I did have little forewarnings and didn't realize that that's what they were. But that's how this works. So with that ego death, it was, when I say an ego death, it just means to me it's more of my shadow stuff coming to the surface that needs to be acknowledged, needs to be felt, needs to be listened to, needs to be heard, needs to be expressed, needs to be released in a healthy way, not in a projection, because projection is what the shadow does when the shadow is the shadow, right? When we are aware of our energies, our thoughts, and our emotions, we don't project anymore onto people, because again, we kind of know better. We're now aware of what we're thinking and what we're putting out. So like for me, if I'm in a really like vile place, like I was a couple days ago when there was a whole bunch of shadowy stuff coming up for me, I remove myself from other people out of courtesy, because it's like, okay, I have some releasing I have to do. They don't need to be they don't need to be around it, right? Because there's nothing they can do about what needs to come out. But when I've released enough, then I will re-enter the space and discuss it with these people if if I feel it's going to be an empowering conversation for the two of us, right? So it doesn't mean I hide my shadow or I shove it down anymore. I am allowing it to express and be what it needs to be, because that's how I release it, to be honest. That's how you get rid of it. It's by allowing it to be whatever it needs to be for as long as it needs to be, and then it eventually says, wow, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for showing me compassion and love instead of shoving me aside and making me feel even worse about myself. This is what the shadow says, right? So when you can allow yourself to just feel all the shadowy stuff, it helps you to move through the process a little bit easier. And karma, this whole thing was really kind of supposed to be about karma. And I don't know if I've confused the F out of people, but again, I'm going to come back to karma is energy responding to energy. That's all it is. Whatever you're putting out energetically through your thoughts and through your emotions is what's going to be returned to you in a life experience or lesson through different people, through different situations. It's always going to be the same kind of lesson that your higher self is trying to get you to say, hey, 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 slow down for a minute. Look at that. Why are you judging that person? Why are you behaving a certain way, right? The shadow just wants to be heard. It's all it wants to be heard. And what we are experiencing right now in the earth plane is a massive shadow show. Everybody's shadows are coming to the surface, and that is because we're going through a huge evolutionary shift in energy and in consciousness. So with that being said, every single being on this planet, their shadow is coming to the surface right now, but only some of us are aware of it. And only some of us are working with the shadow to integrate it and to help it release. You know, we release it by actually integrating it, which sounds very contradictory, but it's actually how it all works. You integrate it by inviting it in because it's already there, but now you're accepting that it's there, you're acknowledging that it's there, and you're listening to it instead of numbing it out, distracting yourself, going to save everybody else instead of dealing with your own shit, right? So karmically, what's happening on this earth plane is, again, so many of us are recycled souls. It goes back to what I was saying with babies animals and elderly people. They are no different than you and I. They have lived many lives. They have lived as good people and they have lived as bad people. And they are now in an avatar to experience something else. And so while I do believe we are here to help those that need our help, 1,000%. Yeah, that's serving, that's being of service. We are here to help those that are wanting to receive our help, but just be careful to not get caught up in this sort of like hero complex, savior complex. We cannot save them all, okay? We can't. And it's actually not really what we're here to do, because they all have their own Akashic record, their own soul blueprint that they've come down to experience life through. And I say this too because, you know, being at an animal shelter, it's a very, it can be a sad environment in the sense of that you are seeing, obviously, a lot of animals that are either abused or they're just dumped somewhere, they're abandoned, right? All of these traumas. You're seeing animals in trauma state. Same thing that happened to me when I was a nurse and I worked with elderly. So another vulnerable population. It's like being at the shelter is very parallel to being back into nursing sometimes for me. Because there's this we have to save them all mentality. Then there's this mentality of we're looking at all of the bad things that all of the bad people out there are doing to these innocent beings. And so what is it doing? It's bringing up shadow for us. And so then how does that come up? Anger. Comes up through anger and sadness. And then there's a whole plethora of emotions that follow that. Guilt, just you name it. And it's a lot of low vibration energies that come up, but it's all still stemming from fear. It's all rooted in fear. It's all rooted in fear. And I've noticed that, like, for me, just being back in another sort of environment where it's like we're there to save them all, and we're seeing a lot of the bad in humanity, the shadow in humanity, it is very, very easy for the human to get sucked into that, right? And to fall right into the cynicism again of the world. And I'm saying this because I'm recognizing, for me, this is a great opportunity for me to be able to be in a setting like that, very similar to, like I said, nursing, but not allow myself to get sucked in. It's an opportunity for me to practice what I preach. It's an opportunity for me to see really where my energy is at. Because do I easily get sucked into that again? Or can I kind of maintain this neutrality? And I feel like I've been doing a pretty good job at staying neutral, because I also understand that people's perceptions of and their opinions and the cynicism that I'm feeling and seeing and hearing is, I understand it's rooted from hurt. And so I empathize for everybody. I empathize for the people that work in those environments. I empathize for the animals. I empathize for the people that are doing bad to the animals. Because I know, because I do animal communication, and these lovely dogs that I get to work with, they do not want humans hating humans. They don't. That's why they picked the avatar they jumped into, because animals are tended to look at as having more of an unconditional loving energy. And while I do believe they do, I also know they have some ego, because they have a survival instinct. That's ego. They also, when they go through trauma, they hold on to fear. And that reminds me of the very first dog that I worked with at the shelter. And he was aggressive. And I've never been afraid of animals. and he did bite me in the ass, which is kind of funny. But it was a test, and I knew that. And it was, there was a part of me that like, oh, I wanted to like not like him because he bit me, and all I was trying to do was show him love. And I'm like, dude, like I was ready to like take you home and make you part of our family, and now you just bit me. Like, what the F? But it also helped me to understand too a little bit more that like animals are on the same like vibration as humans, in the sense that they also do have an ego. Do they have way more of an unconditional loving energy in them than we do? Yes, because their ego is not, it's not the same as ours, but they do still have ego, meaning they have survival instinct. So this poor dog was just traumatized from coming from a traumatic background. And I also had a connection with this dog from another life. So, you know, everything is so interconnected. It's wild. But I bring this up because I realized, you know, how easy it can be for the human, because that was a trauma for me to get bitten by a creature that, like, I've loved dogs my whole life. I love animals, especially dogs. Like, I've resonated with dogs usually more than humans. And I know there's a lot of us out there that feel that way. So when this most loving being that I've had nothing but unconditional love for bit me, it was kind of like a, whoa, all right, so y'all do have egos, first of all. And now I understand that. But it really like tested my fear, because was I now going to fear something that I've loved my whole life because of one animal that had I mean, he had resentment towards me from another life as well. So, you know, he bit more than just me, but I knew with me, I knew there's always a deeper everything, people. Let me just put it that way. And there's a deeper everything for everyone, but I'm just aware of it. So I knew when all that happened, you know, I tapped into it. I had Sam tap into it for me. We did all these readings around this dog, and I learned so many lessons just from that one dog in my first couple weeks at the shelter, right? And since then, I realize I'm learning lessons from all of these dogs. And everybody at the shelter is supposed to be learning lessons from all of these dogs. There's a reason that we're all there. There's a reason that those dogs are all there. We have like contracts with these souls, as cuckoo as maybe it will sound to people, but some people will be like, yo, my God, you're right. We have contracts with them. And like when I say contracts, it just means that we came down to experience certain things, to learn lessons that our soul wanted to learn through sharing a journey or an experience with them. So again, I use everything as a lesson and a tool. And so for me, like being at the shelter and kind of almost like, you know, I do have a little bit of PTSD, I think, from being a nurse, just from the nursing setting. I've talked about it before, like it just being a very toxic energy. Now being in an environment, again, where there's this, we're saving these innocent creatures, we're taking care of lives, right? I'm able to kind of see where I'm at for my own growth, but I'm also able to like step into another level of empathy for people, because I can see how loving all of these people that I've met at the shelter, like I love them. Like I love them. So if any of you guys watch this, like I love you guys, like as family, legitimately, because I'm focused on the good that has come from that place. I'm not focusing on all the shit, right? Because I've lived much of my life focused on the shit that happens, and I realized that karmically, I was recreating shit in my own life over and over, because that's all I was focused on. You know, where we focus our energy and our attention, energy flows where attention goes. Energy flows where attention goes. So when our attention and our thoughts, followed by our emotions, are all ingrained in toxicity, we're creating that energy in that environment. And so I know that. So for me, you know, when I have like off days, like I would literally go there every day, to be honest, because I love it. I love working with the dogs. I love the people that I've met there. I've met so many just amazing people that want to do good. They want to do good for animals. And they're just good people, right? Like, I freaking love them. It's like I went from being a people hating person to like a people loving person. Like, I legitimately, like, when I walk in there, like, I just want to like hug them all. They probably don't want me to do that, but that's how like I feel, right? And I'm there. I'm at this point because I have learned to work through my shadows. So even when there's maybe shadow aspect that comes up in people, I don't have a judgment around it anymore. I'm looking at it from a very neutral perspective, this sort of higher perspective of like, oh, it's all just energy, and they're just unconscious to it. Like, they don't even know. And so there's a big, huge part of me that feels empathy for them because, oh dear God, they're unconsciously suffering. I feel for them. Like, I unconsciously suffered for 30 years. And you know, that's a hard thing to wake up to. So when I look at people that are unconsciously suffering, I honestly just send them love and compassion. I send them nothing other than that. And it's the same thing that when we get these dogs and these horrible, horrible backstories of them being dumped and just really trauma, right? I can feel my brain want to jump right into that toxic, let's hate everyone. I want to go kill everybody that does bad things, right? I can feel like a quick, almost like flip, but then it's gone. It's gone without me even trying for it to be gone, because it's like immediately my higher self kind of takes control and is like, everybody's just hurting. And we're going through this massive evolutionary shift that many people are still not even aware of. So they're feeling it, their shadow, so intensely, but they don't even know it. At least for me, when my shadow comes up, I know that that's what it is. I may not like it, I may fight it, but I at least know that that's what it is. And I know how to deal with it and work with it. These people that don't even know that that's what's happening, I just feel for them legitimately, because, you know, I look at all these dogs that come in with all these backstories, and, you know, then I do my thing where I tap in to get the real story, we'll say, the higher perspective story, and like find out, you know, like, all right, like, what's really going on with this dog. And I'm usually shown the people, right? And I'm very much shown that the people that initially had the dog were soul contracted with that dog. So does this, and this is probably going to be taken out of context, but I don't know how to like verbalize it. So I'm just going to say it the way I can say it, and however anybody receives it is how they receive it. I know what I mean when I'm saying it. It does not mean I don't feel bad for the dogs, okay? I wouldn't be there helping if I didn't have compassion for the dogs or for kids or for elderly. Because I have all the compassion in the world. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing for myself, to be of service to humanity and to animals, humanity and animals, the earth plane. But I don't get sucked into like, speaking of animals, there's mine in the back. Hang on. I just have to get his ball because he likes to shove it under things. Oh, little Bangaroo. He plays this game of, let me shove my ball under things so then I can't get it, and then Mommy has to get it. Oh, God. Okay. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So, what I've learned, I think I say that a lot, what I've learned, but it is what I've learned. So these animals, these doggies that I love so much, they experienced trauma, absolutely. Am I saying they deserved it? Absolutely not. Am I saying I understand that they signed up for it to learn a lesson? Absolutely. Which in turn allows me to stay neutral in the sense that I don't take on their trauma as my trauma. Because that's really what's kind of happening with in healthcare. in these kind of service like jobs, um, police, military, healthcare, um, you know, child advocates, anything that's in protection of children, animals, all that stuff, right? All of service roles. Um, there's a place for them 100% on this earth plane. I'm not saying we're not doing the right thing by doing it. But what happens to many of us that are in those roles, especially for a long time, it's like we actually take on the baggage and the trauma of the people or the animals that we're trying to save. And it makes us suffer. And then we become cynical and angry and depressed. And then guess what? Now we're going into those environments with that energy. So we're amplifying their own trauma, and now we've taken theirs on top of our own shadow that we haven't looked at yet, and it's amplifying that energy. It's literally amplifying it. It's doing the opposite of what we want to do, because what do we want to do? We want to serve to the highest and best of all of these beings, but we don't know what that means because we haven't done it for ourselves yet. We haven't tapped into what's within our highest and best. So how can we help others to their highest and best if we haven't really truly asked ourselves how to do that for ourselves first? Because what I've learned to be of service to people and to animals and to everything, I have to be able to serve myself first. First and foremost, I have to be my priority, not in a selfish way, in a self-love, self-care kind of way. Because when I do that, my energy alone serves people. I don't even have to speak. I don't even have to necessarily do anything. But my energy, which is now in a much more aligned state, meaning my heart and my brain are coherently on the same wavelength, not all the time because I'm still a human, but working at getting them very coherent. So in turn, guess what? The energy I'm putting out is serving. It's serving humanity. It's serving the people that I interact with, whether it's at the gas station, whether it's at Sam's Club, whether it's at, I don't go many places, the shelter, no matter where I go, any interaction I have, I'm serving because I'm now in a very empowered, fulfilled, aligned, happy state. So my energy is pouring out instead of that toxic state that I used to live in, which was pouring out and was not serving humanity or my loved ones or my animals at home. And I had a huge awakening with my dog that passed away before we got this lovely creature, Bandit, Snoop. And Snoop got cancer. And Snoop was 13. Snoop was my guy. He was my dog since I was 18. He, like when I say my dog, he was actually my dog. I begged my mom when I was 18 if I could get my dog, and he was Snoop. And when I say that, that doesn't mean that my mom and everybody in my life gave him just as much love and attention and affection and support that I did. But he was my dog. And Snoop and I went through a lot. Snoop went through some of my most, no, not some of my, he went through my most tumultuous years. He went through my abusive relationship. And he sparked the beginning of my awakening. He died in 2018, and he had full-blown cancer, and it manifested pretty quick. And I started learning about energy shortly after that. And whoa, was that eye-opening. Because I realized that poor little creature, and when I say poor little creature, he's not. It was part of his path. And I am so grateful to him for everything that he taught me when he was alive and everything he's taught me on the other side, because he absorbed so much toxic energy that it created a disease in him, caused cancer, just like how many of us manifest cancer in our own bodies. And Snoop taught me that. And because of him, I know how to do better for my little gem here, Bandit. Because though I can't protect Bandit from everything, and I'm not meant to, I do know that if I can be aware of my energy, and when it's seeping out in a non-loving way, we'll say, or a toxic kind of way, I don't want my dog to absorb that. So it's funny because I have actually taught him. I don't know that I taught him, but he and I communicate on many levels. But I've asked his higher self in his guides, instead of me always having to like remove myself or feel like I have to protect him when I'm not in an okay space, I've asked for his guides to tell him when it's time to go. It's like I've taught him how to have his own boundaries. And it's funny because I'm learning how to have my own boundaries. And it's not in this like fear way that, oh my God, I have to protect him from everything bad, right? Because he's also a God. He is his own soul that came down to experience things. And though it pains me when he's in pain, I also know there's parts of him that have chosen things in this life that he is to break free from karmic cycles and to learn from. I've done many readings on Bandit and a lot of healings on Bandit, which has been really good for my own growth too, because they can't talk. So like I've said before, energy doesn't lie. So I'm able to really witness how energy works through these beings because they can't talk to you, right? And they don't know what I'm doing because I can't, they do know, but from a human perspective, we'll say they don't know what I'm doing. So it's a really good way for me to gauge the clearing of energy, and is it working? Is it like what's going on? Because energy doesn't lie, and they can't lie. They're responding to it. So with him, it's like I've sort of worked with his higher self to help him learn boundaries the same way I'm learning boundaries. So, you know, many of us love that when we're down, our dogs or our cats or whatever our pets, they come and they provide comfort, right? They ground us, and they do, absolutely. But I also realized, like, who's grounding them? Like, they're there grounding us, but they're also absorbing all of our shit when they're grounding us. So, oh God, it makes us feel great, but like, they're sponges, they're absorbing it. So I'm not saying don't allow your pets to ground you. I'm just saying be aware that when you're sort of emotionally releasing, they're taking that in. And all you have to do is just set a simple intention and ask for it to be cleared. That's it. Just ask for whatever energy they may have just absorbed. Just allow them to clear it. Just say, help them clear any energy that's not serving their highest and best. That's just being aware of your energy. It's not being in this like, oh my God, I have to micromanage and protect everything now because, oh my God, my energy is toxic, right? Like, no, that's not, you could go that extreme, but that's not what this is about. It's just about becoming aware of your own energy, how your energy is really causing you to show up for others, what your energy is doing to the environment around you, and vice versa. What the environment is doing to you. What's the energy in the environment? What are you allowing into your energetic space? Where are you not having boundaries? What are you allowing into you that may not be for your highest and best? Or what are you allowing into you that does feel empowering, right? It's all about just becoming more aware. That's what this is all about. It's awareness. That's it. It's not to be fearful, it's to be aware. Because that's when we start to become empowered, when we're aware of how this works. We've all been, it doesn't change the rules of the game, like this energy game that we're playing, by any means, because we've all been playing with energy the whole time we've been here. We've just been doing it unconsciously. And so it hasn't been maybe what's the word? I don't want to use serving, but maybe it hasn't been manifesting to our highest and best, to our highest potentials, because we're we're allowing the energy to flow or get stuck in an unconscious way. That when you start to just become aware of your own energy and how it is in turn also being projected or emanated out into the world around you, it makes you start to maybe choose different things, or maybe you stop watching things that make you feel anxious. Because again, that subconscious computer in us is very, very powerful, my friends. It holds on to everything we watch and everything we listen to, and it cannot discern truth from lies. It cannot discern a real experience versus a one that you read in a book or watch a movie. It doesn't. It doesn't know that. It just takes it in, and then it will tell the conscious part of you to protect yourself from these things. To live in this survival mode, autopilot realm that so many of us are still kind of stuck in. And many of us will still be stuck in that for many linear years, because karmically that's what we're choosing. Either we're choosing it consciously or unconsciously, but there's still choice being made in it. And our minds our brains, I should say, will convince us of otherwise, but there's always choice. We always have choice. We always have choice. We always have choice. Always have choice. And I made a video a few days ago about freedom. And I don't really know if I talked about that we always have choice in that, but we do. We have a choice on how we want to show up for ourselves. We have a choice on the job we choose to work in. We have a choice on the house we live in. These are all choices that we make every day. Every day. We have a choice about what foods we put into our body. We have a choice about the things we watch, the music we listen to. We have a choice about the clothes we wear. We have a choice about the people we surround ourselves with. We have choices. And when we start to become aware of our energy, we start to be able to make more empowering choices, and maybe not fear-based choices and decisions. And that's where I really believe we start to take our power back, because we realize that there's actually a lot we have control over when we realize when we step into this awareness of our own energy. And again, it's not about controlling our energy. Energy is just energy. It's going to flow how it needs to flow. But that's the whole point of it. It's allowing it to flow. That's the irony of it. Having control over our energy is allowing it to flow in whatever way it needs to. So that means if something that's uncomfortable coming up for you emotionally or mentally needs to come up, or physically, then you need to just allow it to flow and give you the message it's trying to give you, because that's all it is. That's all thoughts and emotions are. They're messengers. Same thing as symptoms in the body. They're messengers. They're little flags from your higher self that are like, hey, hello, hi, you've been thinking me for a long time. You've been feeling me for a long time, but you've really been trying to not. You've really been numbing me out, and I really just need to be heard and felt, because otherwise I'm going to sit in your body and I'm going to kind of create a little bit of a problem for you. But I'll start off by giving you this little symptom, high blood pressure, right? I feel like everybody's got hypertension. Everybody's on a blood pressure med. Those are all little symptoms, warning signs that your body is telling you you've got some energies in here that need to be looked at. They need to be acknowledged, because by you ignoring them, they're not going anywhere. You're trapping them. By ignoring them, you're trapping them. And it's the same thing that when we want to ignore these dark truths of the external worlds, it doesn't make them not be there. They're there. And the sooner you can see that they're there, but move through the seeing that they're there and accepting that they're all energy and they're part of the game down here, the more you don't get trapped in them, and the more they don't unconsciously control you anymore. Because again, it's fear. All the darkness, it's fear. Darkness is fear. That is what darkness is. People ask me about dark entities and all this stuff. And the way that Sam and I work with all of it is that everything is energy, and these dark beings, and she and I have had sessions where we have come face to face with dark entities, very dark entities. And though there's a part of us that would have wanted to either banish it or meet it with the same energy, the same scary energy, or yell at it, or that again, this goes back to karma. We realized, because spirit has worked with us very wisely, I would say. We realized, sorry, I have to keep throwing the ball for Bandit because this is what he lives for. We realized that by meeting them with their own energy, we were going to magnify it. So we actually had to invite these scary dark energies in because they were already there. We weren't inviting them in. They were already there. They were already showing themselves to us. And initially we wanted to be like, we're calling in the lights and like, oh, get them out of here. You know, like, no, you are the light, right? We are the light. And they're coming to us because they need to be heard and they need to be understood. And Sam and I had a very, very profound 4-hour, what people on this earth plane would call an exorcism, but we don't refer to it as that. We just refer to it as an energy session with a lot of dark energies. And we watched these beings morph from these big, scary, shadow, demon type creature things into little either children, or one of them I think became like this tiny little plant. Once we just allowed it to be heard. And really kind of goes back to my whole talk on the karma thing, right? The more we meet these bad energies with our bad energy, we're perpetuating it inside of us, and we're making the external one grow even bigger. That's how energy works. And I'm not saying that this is an overnight easy process to get to. This is why I say the only answer is inside of us. It's within. We have to keep going within, deeper and deeper. The deeper I go, the brighter I glow. The deeper I go, the brighter I glow. Because the deeper I go into my shadows and my shit, the more I'm able to forgive self first, and then I can forgive other people. I can forgive the worst of the worst people out there. I can 1000% honestly say this straight face on this camera to whoever the hell watches this, that I can forgive the worst of the worst people out there. I absolutely can, because I have seen the Akashic records. I have experienced it from that outside of the human lens, that higher perspective, that neutral, that being the observer and not being stuck in the human emotion, the very tunnel vision lens, that I can see why people do what they do. And all I have for them is compassion and empathy. And that's what's going to heal this world, my friends. It's not about banishing, killing off all these bad people, because I hate to break it to you, they're going to recycle into another avatar and jump right back down again. Because that's what we all do. That's what we do. Like, so if we just kill them all off, essentially we're disconnecting ourselves from our own soul, and karmically we're not going to be too pleased with ourselves. So just be careful about how you wish karma on people, because you're actually wishing it on yourself. And start to just have compassion for yourself, because that's where it really all starts. We can't fake compassion for people. You can't fake energy. You can't fake accepting something when you don't accept it, which is why I say that when you're doing this deep inner shadow work, you have to just allow whatever's coming up to come up. Because if we're fighting it, we're resisting it, we're not accepting it, we're shoving it down further, and we're making it grow. We're making it grow. So karma is just energy returning energy. And many of us on the earth plane right now are here to break karmic patterns and cycles that we have repeated in other lifetimes, other dimensions, other realities. I know this very well from my own personal experience in seeing so many of my other lives. When I say remembering them, I'm remembering them, right? And with each memory that comes forward, I'm able to really use it as a tool as to what's going on in my current life and what karmic pattern is coming up for me and how did I do it before, because how I did it before is what created the karma. So how do I do it differently this time? How do I show up differently for myself and for others? Because it's the ego that keeps us in the karmic patterns. It's the ego that keeps us in the autopilot survival mode, living in fear, making fear-based decisions, perpetuating fear, projecting fear, and all of the lovely emotions that come attached to fear. That's the ego. That is the karma. The karmic cycle, we'll say, is the ego keeping us in a karmic cycle when you hear that. So for me, like the more memories I remember, it just helps me more to really like look at my day-to-day life and what karmic lessons are coming up for me again, because I tell you, it's no joke. The onion is big when you start peeling the layers back. It's like you think you nailed the lesson and you're like, yeah, let's go a little bit deeper. Here's that same lesson, but it's here it is even deeper. Here it is even deeper. So how did you handle it in the other dimension, in the other reality, that didn't feel empowering to you, and now you want to feel empowered in this reality? So maybe handle it a different way. So for me, it's all about, I've learned it's about forgiveness, forgiving myself, and forgiving myself, and constantly forgiving myself. And that's really what came up again the other day for me when I had a massive ego death. I literally, like, I'll be fully honest, I'm sitting here talking about how I love people. But that day I did not love people for a good day and a half, they'll say. All of a sudden, all of this like rage and anger was coming up for me. And again, if you've watched anything else of mine, I hate anger, but I'm learning to love it because it's just an emotion. It's like I've given it so much more power than it really deserves. It's just another emotion. So I'm allowing myself to feel it. And I had a good angry day the other day. But I'm proud to say I did not project it onto anyone or anything. I was very aware of where I was at. I knew what I needed to do to allow it to move through me. I danced it out. I sang it out. I punched it out. When I say punched, I punched the air and I punched pillows. I screamed, not at anyone, by myself in another room. And of course, my lovely little bandit creature, his higher self came in and off he went. It's like he feels my energy shift. And he knows when to, it's like, and it's so funny because he'll like look back at me like, there's a part of me that wants to stay, but I know I'm supposed to have a boundary. It's like, yeah, man, I love you. Have your boundary. Because I'm learning boundaries too. So it's just funny because he and I are learning a lot of the same lessons together, which is why we have the animals we have. And which is also why I know the certain dogs that are at the shelter, why those of us that go to the shelter are at the shelter, like we are contracted with all of these, like nothing's coincidence. Like everything is so, if I've learned anything, the more I've learned about energy is how interconnected we all are and everything is. Nothing's coincidence. I feel so connected to so many of the people there. And not that I've tried to tap into anything, but I know I've had other lives with them and not anything I've really shared with any of them because whatever. Intuitively, I'll know if and when the time is right. Maybe it never will be. But I know. So I know what I'm supposed to be learning with them, through them, and it's just really cool because it's like, wow, like it's like Earth really is a school, but it's like not the shitty kind of school that we went to in the system, the very indoctrinated education system that we were brainwashed in. Sorry to say that, but yes, that is what happened. But this is the school. This is the mystery school. I've heard it referred to, and it is. It's like everyone is my teacher, and every experience and interaction is a lesson, but it's also a blessing because amplifying my evolution and also humanity's evolution. So karma is just energy returning energy. That's really what this video was supposed to be about, just energy kind of in general, because I know that we don't understand energy, and it's comical but not. It's sad, but it's comical in the sense that we are energy and we don't understand energy because we weren't taught it, right? We weren't taught it in the indoctrinated education system we were all brought up in. Because if we were taught it, then we would be all of these empowered, amazing, energetic beings that we are outside of the avatar, and we'd be like creating this amazing world, which many of us are doing that. And many of us will continue to do that in this lifetime. So just start to, I guess, just become aware of energy a little bit more, and that I've explained a little bit more too, that really our thoughts and our emotions are really what's making up our aura, our daily aura, what we're giving off to the world. It's those thoughts and those emotions. And when they are cyclical, and when I say cyclical, they're like perpetuated. So like for me the other day when I was very angry, I was having cyclical thoughts that would not stop. And it was so loud in my head. But I knew, A, don't go anywhere because you're just going to get triggered AF. And B, don't go anywhere because you're in a pretty toxic energy right now, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Allow it to be what it needs to be so it can eventually alchemize and move its way out of you. But don't go spread that other places. Because it's like I'm so aware of my own energy that it's like I'm so aware of everybody else's too. Like I can feel the shift in people. Like, you know, when I'm around people, I can feel when they shift like immediately. Like they don't have to open their mouth. Like I can feel the energy shift, right? Because our energies, like I said, they're shifting all day long. Our thoughts are changing, our emotions are changing, and it's usually based on whatever is externally going on, because we're very unconscious and allowing the external to dictate how we're thinking and feeling. So, you know, our energies are shifting all day long, and I can feel it the second people's energies shift. And I don't mean that, like I mean it in good and bad, right? Like I can feel when it's like, oh, they just went from a bad mood to a good mood, or a good mood to a bad mood. It's like, whoa, like I can feel it like immediately. So it's like the more aware of my own, obviously, the more aware I become of everybody else's. And it's just, which allows me to have healthy boundaries. Because again, for me, I'm at a point in my healing process that I don't want to self-isolate, because I kind of lived that way for a while. But it was rooted in fear. It was rooted in judgment. I isolated because I just thought that everybody sucked. And so keep your circle small because you can't trust anybody and everybody sucks, basically. That was my mentality. So pretty much everybody sucked, because in my reality, that's what I believed. So that's all I could see. I could only see the suck in people. Let's put it that way. So it goes back to like where your attention is focused on. If your attention is focused on all the shit that people do, that's all you're going to see. And then you're just going to get so burdened with it, because that's all you're focused on. That's all you're seeing. That's all you're feeling. So you continue to create that in your reality. And it just becomes to the point where, like for me, that's when I eventually finally hit rock bottom, and my body was like, I can't take it anymore. I need you to wake up, please, because you're creating such a suffering reality for yourself, and you deserve so much better. We all deserve so much better. That's what this is about. We deserve better. Every single one of us walking this plane deserves to feel better. It is a birthright to heal ourselves. It's a birthright to be a free creator being on this earth plane. But everything we've been taught to believe is the opposite of that. So it's a very hard program to break through, a very, very hard program to break through. And I'm still breaking through it every single day, every day. It's like program upon program. It's wild to me how many programs the human is enslaved by. Even when you're awakened, whatever word you want to use, there are still so many programs. And so I'm at a point where like I'm not trying to self isolate anymore, because I am here to share my energy and also receive other people's energy. I'm here to share an experience of connection. I wouldn't have come into the human body if I didn't want to have connections with people and other living beings, right? I would have just stayed in the other realms where it's easier. But I know I came into the body to experience physical things through the body, through interactions with other people, no matter where they're at in their awakening, no matter where they're at in their journey, no matter what walk of life they come from. Because again, they are all my teacher. They're all my teachers. They're all my teachers. Every single one of them. I have something to learn from every single person because they're all a mirror of me. They really are. Even the people that do the horrific things. Does that mean I abused anybody in this life? Dear God, no. Have I done things in other lives that this person is not proud of? Yes. Have I done things in other lives that this soul has accepted and forgiven and grown from? 1,000%. 1,000%. 1,000%. That's forgiveness, because that's realizing that they were experiences. They were just experiences I was to learn from and grow from, and not karmically repeat again if I choose not to, right? It's all choice. Everything is choice. Everything, my friends. Everything from before we even jump down the chute to come in here to everything that we experience is choice. It's just that we've been taught a very skewed perspective of what choice is and what freedom is and what free will is. We've been taught really the illusionary aspect of those things. So I personally am at a point where, yes, I'm learning to have healthy boundaries, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that I need to like isolate myself from the world and be away from people, because if I can't be around people that are, sort of in their own shadow, that's just telling me that I still have shadow I haven't looked at for myself. If I'm still judging people around me based on what they're saying, doing, thinking, feeling, whatever, like there's still an aspect of me that I haven't accepted, I haven't forgiven. That's why we judge. We judge based on our own internal shadows that we haven't allowed ourselves to look at and to really feel and to embrace and love and accept and free and forgive it. So I feel like I'm at a point now, like, and that's really why I started going to the shelter too, because I don't work a matrix job. Even what I do for work, it's like I do it all remotely. So I still have interactions with people on Zoom and everything. And when I do the fairs, obviously in person, but like I still don't have a huge like social life, right? I never did per choice. But again, the choices that were driving those decisions now are different. Before it was like this fear-based choice to stay away from everybody because everybody was evil, everybody lies, everybody sucks, so I don't need them in my life type of, like, that was the mentality I had, so keep everybody away from me. Now it's like, now I want to build more of a social life, but in a way that feels empowering to me. When I say a social life, for me, that doesn't mean like going out to the bars, going out like doing stuff like that. That's not what feels fun to me. It never really did, but certainly way less now. And again, I don't judge anybody that does that. That's just not what I mean about social. But that's, I think, why I love going to the shelter. Like, that's socializing to me with the people that work there, with the people that come in, and with the animals, right? That's like having more of a social life. That's going out into the world, sharing my energy, and also receiving the energy of those around me. But that also means that because I'm very aware of people's energies, I also know when to have boundaries. So I know when to not go places because of my own energy, or to not go places because I know that the energy there might not be the most empowering energy for me to be around that day. So I'm not going to go put myself into that situation where it's not going to be empowering, right? Boundaries. It's just having boundaries. It's like with Bandit, teaching him to have the boundaries. Like as much as he wants to ground me when I'm falling apart, and I love him for that, I want better for him this time. And the fact that he so quickly knew how to do it, I know that it's something he wanted to learn in this life too. Like I didn't even really have to, I didn't train him to do it. I talked to his higher self. I didn't even talk to him. I talked to his higher self and one of like my main guides that I work with. And I just asked like, you know, is this for his highest and best to be grounding me all the time when I'm an emotional basket case? Or is it in his highest best to learn boundaries like I'm learning? And clearly that's what he was also learning too, because again, he looks back at me like, sorry I'm leaving, but you know I gotta. And it's like, yeah, man, I love you. And I love you for it. So it's like, it's beautiful. It's having, for me, I'm learning how to have boundaries, but also not walls, right? Because it's easy to kind of go from being a little too open to then putting up walls, because now it's like, holy shit, I was like too open. I like let everybody's energy into my space. I was very tolerant. I was always been a very tolerant person. But tolerance does not feel like acceptance to me. It feels very different. I tolerated people because I had abandonment issues, so I was attached. So I physically needed people, certain people around me. So I tolerated a lot. But just because I tolerated it didn't mean it felt good or it felt right or it felt in alignment to me, right? I tolerated it. Now that I'm learning what acceptance feels like, acceptance feels completely different. Acceptance feels way more empowering. It feels expansive. It's like neutrality to me. It's like I accept, meaning like I don't really have an opinion. I don't have a judgment. I just, again, I see everything as energy now. So it's like when I can really look at every person as energy, like my judgments don't even come to the surface anymore. It's like there's very little judgment, because it's like, oh, it's like I can feel, hear, and sense the energy. So it's like, oh, fear, they're in fear, up there in fear. As soon as I know it's fear, which pretty much every low vibrational emotion and thought is stemmed from fear, it's like it's like, oh, all right, I'll send them love. I'll send them love. Love and compassion. Love and compassion. That's all I can do. I can't pull them out of their fear. I'm not here to pull them out of their fear. We can only pull ourselves out of our fear. We can be resources and guides for each other on how we've pulled ourselves out of our own fear, but I cannot physically, energetically, emotionally, mentally, in any way, shape, or form, pull people out of their fears. It's energy that's in them that they need to either be ready to release, or they're choosing to still live in it, you know? So yeah, I'm really learning that I'm in a good place in the sense of like putting myself out there into social settings, social gatherings, whatever it is. And because I'm much more comfortable now in my own skin, I feel more comfortable because I'm not trying to be something or someone that I'm not, and I'm not trying to hide who I am. So that alone makes me comfortable to be around people of all calibers, no matter what stage of awakening I perceive them to be at. I can be around them kind of really without being affected energetically by them, because I can hold this neutral perspective of where they're at. So, but you know, there's also times where I know I have to exercise a boundary, in the sense of like, if I know that somebody is unconsciously negative, like 90% of the time, and there's nothing that I can do to pull them out of their negativity because they don't want to be pulled out of their negativity, then I'm going to remove myself from the environment or the situation, because there's nothing that I can do to serve them, and there's nothing that they're doing that's serving me, because it's toxic. And it's like, you know, and when I say that, it's usually it's kind of people that say the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And that's why I say I know it's very unconscious because they don't even realize they're doing it. But for me, that's where I still exercise boundaries. That's where I will just kind of either physically remove myself, or sometimes I just will mentally remove myself, in a sense that I just sort of allow myself to kind of go into a trance state and not listen to them anymore. Because again, they're really just talking to talk. But they're not looking for guidance. They're not, it's different if they're seeking guidance, right? Like that's a totally different situation. I'm talking about the negative people that are unconsciously drowning in their own thoughts. And so they just keep saying it over and over and over. And that's very draining to be around. And so that's me taking power back over my own energy, because I can't fix them or control what they're saying or doing, nor do I want to. So it's like just being aware, all right, that's where they're at. That's the vibration they're floating in right now. I'm not in that vibe, so I'm going to take my vibe and go elsewhere. And then maybe I'll return, maybe I won't, But it's not having a judgment about where they're at. It's really not. It's understanding that they're just kind of unconsciously suffering in a cycle. So what do? I send them love, compassion, and then I exercise self-love and compassion by taking myself out of that situation. Because again, when I was unconsciously suffering, you hear that phrase, misery loves company, and oh boy, is that true. Wow, is that true? And I've always known it to be true, but again, the more I'm really understanding energy, it's whoa, wow, it's so true how misery loves company. And so when I was miserable, I loved to be around miserable people because we were codependent upon each other, sharing our own miserable thoughts and empowering each other through our misery. And really you all just walk away feeling shitty. But your ego is convincing you that yeah, these are your people because they think like you. And it's oh my God, everybody has a very cynical outlook on everything, and it's toxic. But the ego in me fed off of it and then fed their egos, right? That is misery loving company. That's I feel shitty, so I want you to feel shitty too. And oftentimes it's done very unconsciously, right? It's all ego driven. The ego needs to have validation. The ego needs to have approval and agreement. The ego wants everyone else to agree with it, right? So when the ego is miserable and unconsciously miserably controlling the avatar, everybody else that's in that same state feeds off of it. So you form these I've heard them referred to as trauma bonds, or to me it's just codependency, meaning that instead of kind of snapping people out of their unconscious state, because you're all unconscious, you're all just unconsciously suffering together, but nobody's really growing from it because we're all just recycling the same thoughts and emotions and energies and being pissed at the world and being pissed at our family or whoever, right? And so now it's we've created this little container of toxicity where we've now taken on each other's baggage too. So it's we're airing out our thoughts and our baggage, which in turn everybody that's in that same vibration is receiving our baggage and piling it on top of their own. So it's giving us ammunition. It's fuel for the fire, right? The fire of the ego fire. And it's that is truly misery loving company. It's yeah, hate everybody with me because that feels great. No, it doesn't. None of us like to hate people. I'm pretty sure none of us like what that feels like inside of us. It feels horrible. It really does. Because again, it comes back to we're hating humans because we don't love ourselves, because we're a human. When we're talking shit about humanity, we're talking shit about ourselves. And self-talk that'll be another video. I feel like Sam and I will do that one together. That's I think she and I have talked briefly about it, but I feel like it needs its own fucking stage. Because self-talk is so powerful and important, because many of us have talked down to ourselves our whole life, and you have no idea what that's done to the subconscious brain. No idea. It is. We're all walking around with lack of self-worth. Every single one of us. Even those of us that feel confident, we all have energies of lack of self-worth. We have talked down to ourselves. We have held expectations of ourselves. And so when we don't meet those expectations, it's like we're letting ourselves down. Ego self is who I'm referring to, not higher self, the ego self. And so we become very cynical of humans in general. And I say this as someone who is a recovered cynic, recovering cynic. I had a day of cynicism, like I said, a couple days ago. But that was really my body and my higher self telling me I still had some of those energies in me, even though I believe I had released many of them, which I had. It was my higher self and my body going, still have more to look at, still have more to feel. And so it's like now I'm rebirthed and I'm like, oh my God, I love people again. Like I just want to go like hug my neighbors. It's been crazy. But yeah, so I think this video is probably way longer than I anticipated, as many of my videos end up being. But I really just wanted to try to explain my perspective of karma and just how energy works. And starting to help people become aware of their own energy, because when you become aware of your own energy, you really do start to take power back of your life and how you want to live your life. That's really what it comes down to. Like, how do you want to live your life? How do you want to be in this world? How do you want to show up in this world? Do you want to feel miserable and tired and drained all the time? Probably not. You probably want to feel like inspired and uplifted and empowered most of the time. And again, we're all humans. We're going to go through all these different energies all the time. Even though I am way better off now than I was 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, I still am a human that's going to keep going through shifts. So I'm still going to have these uncomfortable human emotions, but my perspective of them is shifting. And because my perspective of the experience is shifting, the actual experience is shifting, right? It's not as miserable anymore. It's not as uncomfortable. It's still uncomfortable, but because I know I actually signed up to feel uncomfortable down here, I can kind of like accept it more. So by accepting it more, it's like I'm seeing the gift in the uncomfortableness. So it's like I'm having like a simultaneous like suffering and healing at the same time, because it's like I'm seeing the silver lining. I'm learning the lesson as I'm going through the uncomfortable energy shift of it. So I have Bandit staring at me, so I need to go play ball with him. Because that's what he's telling me. He's telling me, Mom, your video's long enough. They got it. And all right. He is my master, I will say. He's my master in this life in many ways. I'm very grateful for him. He's let me put it this way. He's not inferior to me. I don't believe any animals are, children or elderly people. They're all on the same level as me. And though they may need my help sometimes 1,000%, I will be there to help them. When my help is requested, I'll be there in a heartbeat. Heartbeat. When it's requested and wants to be received, I will be there to help, right? But I also am not taking on this, I'm not staying attached to this heroic program, this hero concept, this I gotta save them all, because I do understand that death is an illusion. So, you know, what am I saving? You know, like, again, what are we saving if death is an illusion? And many of us do know that much, that death is an illusion in the sense that, yes, this physical avatar will expire at some point whenever I choose it's time to move on to another reality. But the core essence of me, my consciousness, never dies, never goes anywhere. And it remembers this existence as well as all of my other multidimensional existences. So there is no death. So I look at this human journey. It is such a, it's such a quick, it's like over in a blink of an eye. Like I've heard so many people that have gone through near-death experiences. I was fascinated with listening to those for a long time. Just listening to what people go through in these near-death experiences and come back and share. And a lot of it has synchronized with what I've just been shown from spirit, so it's really cool. But what was I just talking about? Oh, good Lord. This is what happens. Near-death experiences. Yeah. I don't know. Apparently not important enough to continue on because I literally don't remember what I was just saying. I know I was talking about listening to near-death experiences and, yeah. So, anywho, you're getting me in real, or this is me really. This is what happens when I have conversations, and Sam can absolutely resonate and understand where I'm coming from. We'll be talking, and then we're like, what were we just talking? But anywho, I guess that wraps up this video because it's way longer, and it's 7-11. I like to end things on the 11s if I'm able to, but hey, why not? So thank you, lovely, beautiful souls, being humans. This is not an easy journey, and I applaud every single one of us that are walking this earth plane because we have chosen to jump into very, very challenging experiences. So continue to have compassion and forgiveness for yourself, because the more you can have that for yourself, it's going to trickle out into your external realities. You won't even have to try to forgive things anymore, because the energy lives inside of us. And when you can start to anchor the energy in the body and in the mind, it just becomes part of who we are. And you're no longer trying to forgive. You're no longer trying to accept. You're allowing energies to be what energies are, and you're learning from them. You're learning from every energetic experience. So I love all of you. I thank you for being part of my energetic experience. And yeah, rock and roll, people. This is not easy, and we got this. So I love you. Thanks. Ta-ta.